Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to do these Crystal Eclipse earrings for you. They could also be turned into simple beaded beads linked together. I'm just going to be making them nice simple and sticking them on ear wires. For this, we're going to be using a couple different Potomac Bead Company exclusive products, as well as things that you most likely have sitting around. The products will be listed with links here on the left-hand side, and that way if you need anything you can click there, or you can actually go to the details underneath the video here and click the Show More button, and that'll give you links to purchase online if you need to do so. For this, we're going to be using in our center our RounDuos beads. So altogether for a set of earrings, we're going to be using 4 RounDuos. I'm calling this the Crystal Eclipse because one kind of round bead hides the other, but I did want it to be double-sided so that way if it is an earring and hanging up, you can see it from both sides. The RounDuos that I'm going to be using in the video is the pearl here. So it's going to be that white pastel pearl. In the example, I did use the crystal graphite of the RounDuos bead. And they are a 5mm bead. You could also do this with a faceted round trio 6mm. It's just going to hide our next material a little bit. Other than the RounDuos beads, we are going to be using 4 per earring, so you're using 8 total of the Potomac Crystal Rondelles. In the example here, I used the purple tanzanite color. I'm going to be using the champagne color in with the pearl color of the RounDuos beads. In addition to that, we're going to point our corners with some 15-0s, and I'm going to be using the opaque turquoise green color of 15-0. And we're also using an 11-0. It just highlights the crystal and creates kind of our corners on either side of the crystal. And that I'm using in the matte patina iris color. And that's an 11-0 Miyuki seed bead. And for it, you're just going to be using 8 per earring. So very simple, kind of 16 beads of those, 8 of these, 4 of these, and then a number of your 15-0s. In addition to that, I have some ear wires sitting here. I have standard fishhook earrings, and then I also have my wire hoop earrings. So the wire hoop earrings is just going to show you how you could use those, and the standard fish hooks, how you can use those. I'm working on a bead mat, and I'm also working with a size 10 English beading needle. And I'm working with about 30 inches of wildfire beading thread. That's going to get both earrings done. I have handy my thread zap too. There's a number of different thread cutting and fusing and zapping options. This is the thread zap 2. We also have the Ultra as well as the new Beadalon Wildfire one. I have my slip and snip cutters sitting handy. And again, it's the Wildfire Thread 0.006 that I am using. You may also want to, or you may not, it's up to you, have some super new glue sitting handy if you do want to glue your knots. Because these are earrings and that's what I'm going to be using these for. I didn't bother to glue my examples. So we're going to get ready to get started, and we're going to make little piles of all the different materials. Again, you can pause at this point if you want, click to the links there on the left, or you can drop down to the Show More details under the video to get links to the products if you can't get to one of our Potomac Bead Company locations to pick them up. All right, everyone, we're going to get started. I have my needle on my thread, which I used my thread zap in order to cut off that 30 inches of thread. And I also have a little bead that's not part of my project sitting here to work as a bead stopper for me. A bead stopper is going to stop my beads from falling off the thread and allow me to work without actually creating a knot first. So I have that bead. Most people have beads sitting around their bead mat from different projects. If you don't, kudos to you for having a clean workspace. I have a delica here that I'm going to take down to the end of my thread, and then I'm going to take my needle and go back up through the delica 2 times, leaving just a 2-inch tail. And if you're really good at tying knots, you can even just leave a 1-inch tail. That's kind of up to you. Once you have that stop bead in place, we're going to go ahead and get started with almost our right angle unit that we're creating these that we're creating these eclipse earrings out of. So we're going to start by adding 2 of our 11-0s and then a crystal, followed by 2 11-0s, crystal, you get the pattern, 2 11s, crystal, 2 11s, and a crystal. So we're adding 8 11-0 seed beads and 4 of our crystals. We're going to let those all drop down now that they're on the needle, down to the bottom of the thread to that stop bead. Once we have those there, we're going to create that right angle unit by taking our needle and thread, closest bead to the stop bead there, going away from the stop bead, we're going to go through our 2 11-0s, our crystal, and 1 more 11-0 bead. So you're going through 4 beads total. You're going to be coming out between 2 of your 11-0 beads. I'm going to give a nice tight pull, and that's going to kind of force that stop bead down to the base and have you ready to go. You can see here it doesn't sit in this perfect little square like the example, which is what we're going to do with some 15-0 seed beads. So around the corners, and to create our actual little right angle unit here, we want to make sure that the crystals aren't actually at the corners, that the crystals are in the middle here of our little box. To do that, we're going to use 3 15-0 seed beads, and we're going to sew through the next 11-0 crystal, 11-0 in line. So we're sewing through the next 3 beads. We're going to give a nice tight pull, and that's going to create that little 3 picot trim there out of our 15-0s. I'm going to continue the whole way around my square to add 3 15-0s between our 2 11-0 seed beads, thus creating the corners. When you do this, you also want to make sure to pull fairly tight so that way you don't have a lot of thread showing between your 11-0s. When you get to the side and you have that stop bead there, just make sure you're not sewing through the stop bead, because you don't want that to become part of our project. That's why I always use a bead that's a different bead not included in the project, so I don't do that by accident. The last 3 beads are going to go on, and we're going to sew back to the start here of our project, right where we were coming out to begin with. If your tail happens to get twisted in there, just pull it out and push it out of the way. Again, give a good little yank so you make sure that picot trim sits nicely and it's not twisted like this one's doing here. Once you have that, what we're going to do is actually, because this is going to be 2-dimensional and that we are actually doing it double-sided, we are going to puff up the corners a little bit. To do that, when we're coming out of an 11-0 here, just like we are on the side, we're going to add 1 more 15-0, and then we're going to sew through the top corner 15-0. We're going to do this the whole way around and force that 15-0 to sit down. I'm going to add another 15-0, and then I'm going to sew through my project the whole way through the 11, the crystal, and the 11. What that's going to do is create a little almost X pattern at the end here on the point, and that helps me to make it just a little bit more substantial. You don't have to do this part, but I thought it made it look a little bit prettier when I was playing around. You add a 15-0, go through the corner 15-0, and you want to make sure to keep all this second set of 15-0s to the same side. Add another 15-0 and go through your 3 beads on the side of your right angle unit. So whenever you're adding the beads here, keep them to one side. You can see that little point occurring. Another bead goes on, and you go the whole way around. Once you are around and you have this completed, we're going to get ready to add in our RounDuo beads. Again, you could do this with a number of different beads. I liked the way the RounDuo created an X pattern, and that's how I chose to use that. I went back and forth with doing something else like a Monty, but stuck with a RounDuo. Once you have all of those in place, you're going to go back through the last set, or I should say the first set of the 11, the crystal, the 11, and not through any of your 15-0s. What we're going to be doing now is we're going to be adding our round duo bead right to the middle. So I'm going to drop that little pearl in. I kind of have a pearl obsession, so I'm going with pearls. We're going to do one side, and then we're going to flip over and we're going to do the other side. What I want to do is I'm not going on a diagonal, I'm going side by side. My bead or my thread is coming out one of my 11-0 seed beads. So once you're coming out of your 11-0 here, we're going to go straight up the project. So we're going to go from the bottom to the top and then around just these two top and bottom crystals. So the side crystals are not going to be involved at all. We're going to be using two 15-0s and then our round duo bead and then two more 15-0s. So rather than going in a crisscross fashion, we're actually going up and down the project. Once you have those on, the two 15-0s, the round duo and the 15-0, you're going to take your needle and thread from the 11-0 at the top through the crystal and out the other 11-0 beside it, making sure that you're not getting any of the 15-0s on the corner. Push that there to the top so it folds over. And then on the other side, you want to take two 15-0s, go through your round duo bead, grab two more 15-0s, and then you're going to sew through the 11-0, the crystal, and the 11-0 on the opposite side. If you can sew through them all at once. If it wants to give you a little bit of a problem, just sew through them one at a time. Once I'm through there then, I'm going to make sure that my needle is coming out the back end so that way I can do the other side. You could make these reversible also, that one side would be one color, one side would be another color. So there's that first side, and the pearl looks really pretty just kind of sitting in there with that turquoise. I'm going to take my needle and thread, make sure you're coming out the other side. So we're still coming out our 11-0 here, and we're going to do the same thing. This time we're going from the top to the bottom and then back up to the top. You want to make sure that your round duos are sitting the same, so the holes are sitting in the same direction. It's just going to make it sit nicer. Again, we're going to use two of our 15-0s. So on our round duo, two 15-0s, and then go through the 11, the crystal, and the 11. I'm going to give a nice tight pull there. And we're going to do the same thing, adding 15-0s, going through our round duo, 15-0s. And you can see I turn the project as I'm working with it. It makes it easier for me to handle. When I'm through the 15-0 here, or the 11-0 and the crystal and the 11-0, now that I'm finishing up, I want to take my thread and needle and I want to go through actually the whole way to come out one of the corners and one of the points of my beads. Unlike this example here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a V above for my earring to sit on. To do that, when I'm coming out of one of my corner 15-0s, so I have those little corner ones sticking up, I'm going to add 3 more 15-0s, 3 11s, and 3 15-0s. I'm going to then sew into the corner bead on the other side. You can see that's just going to kind of create that point tip right above the earring. To finish off, I just want to get my thread next to the tail thread. So you can do that by kind of snaking it through your project. And then I'm just going to tie the two ends together. If you want to, you could even stick a little crystal on top. I'm going to show you how we're just going to go in and attach the ear wire right to the bead so you don't have to worry about it. But once you get finished, you want those two threads to be coming out right next to one another. And again, just tie a knot then. I'm going to move my stop bead a little bit because that's in the way. Sometimes with the stop beads, you can just pull them out of the way. Sometimes you actually need to sew them off going back through. And once those are out of the way, I'm just going to take those two ends and just tie it off. I'm going to use that same technique to create another one. And then once those are created, I will show you how we attach the ear wires very easily. When you're at the end here, if you want to, you can glue, you can burn your threads down and off. It's up to you. And there you have your little solar eclipse, your little eclipse crystal earring. And we're going to get in and get ready to do the next one. I'm going to do the next one, and then again we're going to go ahead and we'll add these little beaded beads to our ear wires. Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to make a sweet little pair of earrings for you today. This earring pattern is making a beaded bead, and this is called the Eclipse Crystal Earring. So when you're working with it, we are going to be making these little beaded beads. You can then take those beaded beads, make something else out of them, link them together for a bracelet. You can kind of do whatever you want with them. But I thought for learning and the simplicity of it, we are going to be making another earring to match with this one here that I've already started. So for this, we're going to use a couple different materials, some PVC exclusive ones, as well as some metal and some pliers. So it's kind of one of those, you're making earrings, so you need more than just beads and thread. On the left-hand side here on the screen, we'll put links to the things that are used in the video. Also, for additional items that are used, you can always go to the Show More button underneath the description, right underneath the video here, and then I'll have links to the different things that were used actually in the video. The Potomac Bead Company exclusive products that are going to be used in the video are our RounDuos beads, and the RounDuos beads are 2-holed 5mm beads. We're going to be using 4 of those per earring, or if you're doing the beaded beads, 2 per bead. In addition to that, we're using some Crystal Rondelles, and we're using the Potomac Crystal Rondelles. So this is another PVC exclusive. They're a 3x4mm rondelle. And in the example piece here for our RounDuos, I've done the Crystal Graphite Rainbow, and then the purple color is our Tanzanite color. For the one that I'm making with you guys here, I'm going with a little pearl look and some turquoisiness. So I'm going with the pastel white here for our RounDuos bead, and then for our crystals, we're going with a champagne color. In addition to those products that you may already have, or if you need to get some, we can help you out, are some 11 OC beads and 15 OC beads. For the project that we're working with, the 11 O's that I'm going to be using are the matte metallic patina iris, and they're a kind of green mixture color. And we're also going to be using some 15 O's, and those are an opaque turquoise green color here. This is going to come all together after the beaded bead is made with some ear wires and also some 24 gauge wire connecting those to it. I have some thread and needle sitting here also to create the beaded bead portion, and I have a size 10 needle, and this is the Pony brand size 10 needle, and about 30 inches of 0.006 wildfire beading thread. That's going to get you both earrings done. So that whole 30 inches, great to cut it at once and then you don't have to rethread your needle. I have sitting handy a thread zap. I have the thread zap 2. We also have the Ultra and the Wildfire thread zap. I also have sitting near me a couple standard wire tools. I have the bent needle nose pliers, I have the round nose pliers, and I have a wire cutters. So I have those to help me when I'm working with that little wire link, that coiled eye pin at the very end. To get started, I'm going to start with the beaded bead, and then we'll go in and we'll actually create the finding, connecting it to after the whole process. If you need any of those materials, you can pause here, click on that left-hand link to get those, or you could always shop at our actual retail locations. You can go to PotomacBeads.com to find the locations or to shop online. So to get started, we're going to kind of lay out our materials. I'm putting my ear wires, my art wire in the 24 gauge to the side, and I'm just going to be dealing with my beads right now as I work to create the next little beaded bead. So each beaded bead here of the Crystal Eclipse earring has 2 RounDuos in it. It's also going to have 20 of my 11O seed beads. I'm sorry, 24 11O seed beads. And depending on if you're doing the link with the crystal, this one I did it with a seed bead, you're going to need 4, or if you want to do the link, 5 of the Potomac Rondelles. And then we're going to use a number of the 15 O's. You can also make links out of seed beads. I tried a couple different ways to do that, tried to use some jump rings, and I didn't like anything as much as the wire, so that's why I picked that. To start out, we're actually going to start out with our thread here, and I have about 15 inches of thread left. That thread is left because I've already done one of my little beaded beads here. I'm going to pick an 11O seed bead that's sitting by my mat that was not used in this project. This one is from the previous little example piece that I made. Most likely you have an extra bead sitting around your mat that is not part of your project. If you don't, good job on cleaning up your work area. But as most of you know, you have a bead or 2 or 4 or 100 sitting around. So you're going to put your bead on and leave about an inch left. And I'm going to take my needle and thread away from that little tail that's created. I'm going to do that 2 times, which is going to put 2 pieces of thread on the outside of the bead and stop the beads from falling off as I'm working with them. Next, what we're going to do is almost like a right angle unit. To create that right angle unit, we're going to do a pattern of 2 seed beads and 1 crystal. We're going to use up our 4 crystals because that extra one, as not to confuse, will just move out of the way for now. So you're going to use up all of your crystals that are on your mat right now, all 4 of them. And you're going to separate them out by 11O seed beads. So the pattern is just 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. We're stopping with a crystal because we're actually going to round this out in a right angle weave fashion. We're going to take our needle and thread back through the first 2 11Os, the crystal, and the first 11O after that Potomac Rondelle. When I pull tight, I want to make sure that it's down next to the stop bead and that that little almost circle is created. For this design, we don't want a circle, we want a square. So to create our square, we're going to create corners with our 15O seed beads. We're going to use 3 15Os in between each one of our 11Os to create our corner. This is going to be almost like a picot trim corner. We have 3 11Os on. We're going to go then through the second 11O there at the corner, through the Potomac Rondelle, and through the first 11O after that rondelle. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to create that first corner. We're going to mimic that on all the corners, sewing right around the circle here to create our square, and adding these 3 15Os between our 11Os. As you come around near the stop bead, make sure you're not sewing through the stop bead and just kind of push it out of the way. After you're done putting on those 12 15Os, you're going to sew through the last 11O, Potomac Rondelle 11O, and come out right at the beginning of your first 3 15O picot trim. Once you have your little cornered piece here, we're actually going to fluff up the corners. I like the corners to look a little pointed. I think it made it look a little bit more substantial. And because of the idea of this eclipse is that you can only see one round at a time, but the nice thing is in your ear it's going to spin around so it's not one-sided. To fluff up those corners, what we're going to be doing is adding an additional 2 15Os to each corner piece. When I'm coming out of an 11O, I'm going to add 1 more 15O, and I'm also going to sew through the very top bead of that picot trim that's already there, that middle 15O. I'm going to add another 15O, and then sew clear across, back out the 11O on the other side of the next crystal. When I pull tight, it creates an X shape there and just fluffs up that corner. I'm going to continue to do that the whole way around, adding a bead, sewing through the corner bead, and then adding another bead. After you sew through your 11Os and your crystal, you want to make sure that those 15 O's that you just added stay to the same side and almost get pushed down in the corners. We continue to do that the whole way around here. Again, making sure they kind of stay to the same side. And when we come around then to the stop bead, a lot of times when you have the stop bead next to the project, it kind of creates that picot trim or makes that picot trim turn to the side. Just force it straight up and down. You can even loosen your stop bead out of the way at this point. And once you're coming out here on the corner, make sure just to continue with your pattern. After you're done your pattern, we're going to make sure that our seed bead or our needle and thread are coming out after an 11-0 seed bead, and they're coming out right next to between the 11-0 and the 15-0. When we're doing this, also what we want to make sure occurs is that that square shape is maintained. To maintain that square shape, we're going to be adding in our RounDuo. To do that, I'm going to be ignoring the 11 O's and the crystals on the side. So we're going to ignore the right and left. I'm going to be going up and down, going from the top to the bottom, through the bottom beads, and then back up to the top and around. That's going to get our first RounDuo in place. To get our pattern, we're going to add a 15-0, an 11-0, our RounDuo, 11 and 15. So when you look at your pattern there for the top, it's going to be the 15, 11 RounDuo and then mirrored on the other side. On my first example piece, I actually just used two 15-0s, so that's also an option. On this second piece, I actually made it twice, once with both 15-0s, and I liked the look of the 11-0s better. When we're coming out here, again, we're going to ignore the side beads after we add those beads, and we're going to go straight down to the bottom here, through the 11-0, the crystal, and the 11-0, and then right out. That's going to pull that RounDuo to the side so it sits that first portion of the X. On the other side here, we're going to add a 15 and an 11, so up through the RounDuo, and then add an 11 and a 15 on the other side. When we're doing this here, we're going to get ready to do the other side by sewing through the 11, the crystal, and the 11. Again, we're at the top, and this time I want my needle to come out towards the back of my project. If it comes out the front, not a big deal. What you can actually do is just take your needle and thread and kind of poke it through to the back. So there's going to be the look of the front, and we're going to mirror that in the back. Again, in the back here, I want to follow what I've been doing with the RounDuo. So the way that the holes are facing with the RounDuo, I want to continue that on the back. So I'm going to continue just using the top and the bottom, ignoring the side beads. To do that, I'm going to use an 11-0 or a 15-0, 11, RounDuo, 11, 15. I'm going to go to what was the bottom, but I'm going to sew towards the top. I like to sew away from me, and go through the crystal and the 11 O's, and then bring your needle out. When I'm on the other side here, I'm going to add my 15-0 and pour out 2 more 11 O's. So I have my 15 and my 11. Going through my RounDuo, adding my 11 and my 15 when I'm on the other side. When I'm here on the other side, what I want to do is actually sew back towards the start of that RounDuo. So it's a lot of times kind of hard to see with the beaded beads because you're doing so many things in a small area. But you're sewing just as if you were starting to do the exact same thing over again. I'm sewing through the 11, the crystal, and the 11. When I give a tight pull, that's going to actually complete my beaded bead here of my Crystal Eclipse earrings. To finish it off, I want to get my threads back together so that way I can tie a knot in my thread. To do so, I'm just going to see where my thread is coming out of here. So it's coming out right there next to the 11-0. And I'm going to take my needle and thread and go right along the base of the bracelet, or base of the bead right here, making sure I can't see any of this thread that I'm sewing, and just sew right along till I get to that stop bead. Once you're at the point where that bead's coming out, what you're going to do is take off your stop bead and just tie these two thread ends into a knot. You're going to tie it in 1, 2, 3 knots. If you want to, you can glue. That's up to you. Because it's an earring and it's not getting a lot of wear and tear, I'm not going to worry about gluing it. I'm just going to take my thread burner, burn down my thread ends, and then using that thread burner, create almost a blunt end so that way the thread can't go back through the bead. And there you have your second little eclipse beaded bead. What we're going to do is actually attach the ear wire and the finding in order to do that. So at this point, if you need to make another one, you can kind of pause the video, make your other one, or you can continue with us and then go back and recreate your other beaded bead if you are doing a set of earrings. If you wanted to, you could also just keep this one-sided and do a ring. You could do a pair of post earrings as well. So there's a lot of variations that you could do on this eclipse crystal earring. To actually make it into an earring, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up some tools and some wire. I'm going to be using, again, 24 gauge art wire. You could also use 24 gauge sterling silver if you wanted to do that, or gold filled. And I'm going to cut about 4 inches of wire. And that's with my wire cutters. Next, what I'm going to do is use my round nose pliers to create a coiled eye pin. I'm going to hold my wire, bend my round nose pliers back away from me. When I'm doing that, what I want to have occur is I want a 90-degree angle. If you need further assistance doing a coiled eye pin, I have a nice tutorial on that as well, if you want to perfect your loops. Once you have that wire back away from you, the straight piece is going to be parallel to your body, short piece coming straight out from your chest. You're going to take that short piece over the top of the round nose pliers till it touches on the other side. Switch from holding the top jaw to the bottom jaw of the pliers, not moving the wire at all, just moving your pliers. And I want you to bend that short piece of wire back away from you. That's going to bring it back up to that 90-degree angle. I'm going to pick a nice looking corner, go into my 15-0 seed bead, and this is why I picked 24 gauge, because that's going to go into the 15-0, and open up that loop that you created a little bit and just push that right in there with either your round nose pliers, or if you have tiny bent nose, you can use those. You're just going to coil that short piece of wire one complete time around the longer piece of wire. Go back in with your wire cutters and cut off that extra wire. If you need to and you have a little bit of an end, you can go in with your bent nose and kind of pinch that down a little bit. On the previous set, the Tanzanite set, what I did was just use an 11-0 seed bead. This one here, I'm going to put an extra little crystal on the top. I slide that on my long piece of wire that's still there. And then right above the crystal, I'm going to make another coiled eye pin, making a link. I'm going to turn my wire right after my bead, just leaving a little tiny bit of space so that way I can do a coil. I'm going to turn my wire back again 90 degrees. Come over the top till it touches, flip your pliers, and go back to 90 degrees. Again, creating that 90-degree angle to manufacture that link. Once I have that, I'm going to go in and coil one full time around to mimic the base. Cut off that extra wire. And then if you need to, again, with your bent nose pliers, you can just kind of squash that in. There you have your 2 earrings ready to be put on ear wires. And the ear wires that I've chosen are just simple ear wires. And these are just the regular little coiled ear wires. I'm going to open up that link by sliding it to the side, sliding on my earring, and making sure to push that back in place and make sure it's really close so you don't lose your earring. You could also put this on a lever back earring, kidney back. You could put it on a hoop. That's kind of up to you. I'm going to put this other one on here and close it up. And there you have your completed pair of your Crystal Eclipse earrings. This other one here I'll put on then after the fact. But these are great just to wear as a little statement piece if you're kind of dressing yourself up for the day. They're going to be a great one that will add a little bling without looking like heavy seed beads that you're wearing. I'm, like I said, kind of obsessed with pearls and the ocean and those blue tones, so these I will probably wear tomorrow. And if you do need any of the products, like I said, there's the link below. There was the link at the beginning. You can also visit any Potomac Bead Company store to grab the RounDuos as well as the Potomac crystals. If you do like the videos, you want to see more product updates of PBC exclusive products, new things that we get in, new things that are manufactured, as well as different videos and tutorials on bracelets and necklaces and so on, you can subscribe to our channel. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us that way, and also sign up for our email list through our website. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and have fun making these beautiful little classy Crystal Eclipse earrings.